Deep in the northern region of Japan lies Toyama Prefecture, a place where mountains rise sharply like folded paper and thick mist often clings to the valleys. Among the quieter rural roads and forested hills, there is an abandoned psychiatric hospital that locals sometimes refer to in hushed voices as part of the Old Tōyama hospital ruins. Over the years, this place has become surrounded by rumors, half-remembered stories, and eerie folklore that blends history with imagination. But to understand the legends, you first have to understand the era that created places like this. Hospital: the forgotten era of psychiatric hospitals in rural Japan. In the mid-20th century, Japan was rapidly rebuilding after the devastation of World War II. Rural prefectures like Toyama struggled with limited medical infrastructure, especially in specialized fields such as mental health care. Small psychiatric hospitals were built outside cities for practical reasons. Land was cheaper. Patients needed isolation for treatment methods of the time. Rural communities were less crowded and considered peaceful environments. However, mental health care in that era was very different from today. Treatments were often harsh by modern standards, not because of cruelty alone, but due to limited understanding of mental illness. In many rural hospitals across Japan, including those in regions like Toyama, patients lived long-term, sometimes for years or even decades. Families often visited rarely due to distance or social stigma. Over time, some facilities were closed as Japan modernized its healthcare system, especially during the late 1980s and 1990s. Buildings were left behind, beds, records, medical tools, frozen in time. It is within this historical backdrop that the Old Tōyama Psychiatric Hospital legend begins. Fog: the abandonment. According to local accounts and urban exploration stories, the hospital was eventually shut down due to a combination of factors. Declining patient numbers. Budget cuts. Relocation of medical services to modern facilities in Toyama City. And the aging infrastructure of the building itself. When it closed, it was not demolished immediately. Like many rural Japanese facilities, it was simply locked and left. Over time, nature began reclaiming it. Vines crawled through broken windows. Moss spread across tiled hallways. Rainwater seeped into patient rooms. Wooden floors warped and collapsed. Locals began avoiding the area, not just because it was abandoned, but because of what they claimed to experience nearby. Ghost: the first legends begin. It is said that shortly after abandonment, hikers and farmers passing nearby began reporting unusual occurrences. Some heard footsteps echoing inside empty corridors. Distant voices calling names that no one should know. The sound of doors slowly opening and closing in the windless night. Others claimed they saw a woman standing at broken windows staring outward. Flickering lights in rooms with no electricity. Shadows moving between corridors even when the building was sealed. Most dismissed these stories as imagination or fear. But as more people began reporting similar experiences, the legends grew. Brain: the Whitehall patient. One of the most repeated legends involves a figure known only as the Whitehall patient. According to stories told by locals and online explorers, there was once a long-term patient in the hospital who rarely spoke. She was often seen walking the same corridor repeatedly, always the same path, always at the same hour in the evening. After the hospital closed, people claim she never left. Urban explorers say that if you stand in the central corridor of the building at dusk, you may hear slow footsteps pacing behind you, even when the building is empty. Some even claim to have seen a pale silhouette at the far end of the hallway, standing perfectly still before disappearing into darkness. There is no official record confirming this person's identity, but the story persists. Derelict house: the room that was never opened. Another well-known legend involves a locked room on the second floor. Locals say it was sealed long before the hospital closed. No one agrees on why. Some say it was an isolation room for highly dangerous patients. A storage room for medical records. Or even a place where experimental treatments were once performed. Urban explorers who claim to have reached the second floor describe something strange. Even when the rest of the building is decayed and silent, this room feels different. They report colder air near the door. Scratches on the outer frame. Faint knocking sounds from inside. No verified entry has ever been documented. Nature and silence. Today, the surrounding area is almost completely reclaimed by forest. Trees grow through broken fencing, and wild grass covers what used to be pathways for staff and patients. At night, the silence is heavy, broken only by wind moving through metal frames and distant animal calls. Locals often say, "The forest hides it now, but it hasn't forgotten." Whether this is superstition or psychological effect is impossible to prove, but the fear remains part of local storytelling culture. Camera with flash. Modern urban exploration era. In the Internet age, the abandoned hospital gained attention from urban explorers and paranormal enthusiasts. Videos and photographs circulated online showing collapsed hospital beds, faded patient charts, graffiti covering decayed walls, corridors swallowed by darkness. Some videos appear normal. Others include unexplained distortions, blurred shapes, sudden camera glitches, or audio interference. Skeptics argue these are just technical issues. Believers say otherwise. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. Puzzle piece. The reality behind the myth. Despite the legends, there is no confirmed historical evidence of supernatural events tied to the hospital. Most historians agree that it was likely a small rural psychiatric facility. It operated during Japan's post-war healthcare expansion. It was eventually closed due to modernization and consolidation. It was abandoned and left to decay like many rural institutions of its era. However, what makes the place legendary is not documented fact, but human psychology. Abandoned hospitals naturally evoke fear. Silence feels unnatural in places meant for care. Decaying medical spaces trigger imagination. Isolation amplifies suggestion and rumor. Over time, stories evolve, and places like this become symbols of mystery rather than history. Movie camera. Final thoughts for your video. The Old Tōyama Psychiatric Hospital is not just a building, it is a reflection of a past era of medicine, isolation, and rural Japan's quiet transformation. Whether the legends are real or not, the atmosphere created by abandonment is powerful enough to turn empty corridors into stories, and shadows into characters. And perhaps that is why these places continue to live on, not in records, but in whispers.